As a prisoner of the Japanese during World War II, Robert T. Browne had seen humanity at its worst. He'd seen people tortured, shot, and intentionally deprived of food. However, unlike most people, Browne saw these events as part of a larger divine plan that had been unfolding for millions of years. In 1948, Browne outlined his basic philosophy in a book he called The Pantelicon. Like many of Browne's favorite words, Pantelicon is a self-created fusion of two Greek words, pan meaning all, and telikon meaning a body of purposes. The year 1947 witnessed the utter degradation of the human spirit, Browne wrote. Having reached the nadir of degradation in this regard, there must now be an inevitable reversal of motion. As the current downward cycle reversed itself, Browne predicted that radical new energies would begin to sweep across the planet. Eventually, the new upward motion would propel mankind into a permanent golden age characterized by peace, harmony, and love. However, those who were not spiritually prepared would not be able to survive the bumpy transition period. Long before global warming appeared on the radar screen of most scientists, Browne warned his followers that the toxic levels of carbon dioxide being produced by Western civilization would raise the temperature of our atmosphere, causing the polar ice cap to melt and the oceans to rise. As a result, he predicted that the next 100 years would see a sharp increase in weather-related disasters. To prepare for the energetic shifts to come, Robert T. Browne created a comprehensive program of spiritual study that included dietary restrictions, breathing techniques, mantras, and meditations using the sacred syllable Om. Every thought, feeling, and desire which the student entertains, even for a fraction of a second, he wrote, would become a part of that student's consciousness. In the late 1940s, the daughter of Pompilio Browne, an influential politician from the Dominican Republic, began to attend Robert T. Browne's lectures. Her father, Pompilio Browne, was a scholar, a doctor, a Masonic Grand Master, and a serious student of the occult. He would go on to hold a series of important positions in the Dominican government. Impressed with what she heard, Browne's daughter invited Robert T. Browne down to the Dominican Republic to give a series of lectures. How I wish I could have been a fly on the wall at one of these events. In my mind's ear, I imagine Robert T. Browne sharing this message from his Pantelicon in the grand manner of the pre-microphone era. The age in which we now live is doubtless the most important that the human race has ever seen or will ever see again. In 1950, Robert T. Browne, Cecilia Browne, and their friend Edgar Mason Needler made a spiritual pilgrimage to Northern California to visit Mount Shasta. This mountain is believed to contain a vortex of unusually high energy. While visiting the sacred mountain, Browne was given the divine plan for his new spiritual society. The Hermetic Society for World Service has been organized as a medium for the dissemination of the highest truth, he wrote, a beacon of light in the Stygian darkness which prevails over the earth and in the minds and hearts of mankind. In 1968, Robert T. Browne was again invited to return to the Dominican Republic. Among the Dominican intellectuals who attended Browne's lecture, there was a 26-year-old poet named Miguel Alfonseca. Alfonseca was part of an esoteric study group that included Pompilio Brauer, the poet Rafael Vasquez, and the actor and playwright Ivan Garcia Guerra. Alfonseca had been an outspoken political activist, and he had vigorously opposed the occupation of his country's capital by U.S. Marines in 1965. I do not know exactly what Browne spoke about that evening. Perhaps, as he had done many times before, he stressed the benefits of walking on the spiritual path. Spiritual knowledge is the only thing that matters, he often told his followers. It is priceless, more precious than rubies, emeralds, diamonds, and sapphires, more to be desired than life itself. Miguel Alfonseca and his young Dominican friends would have been on the edge of their seats as Robert T. Browne ticked off the spiritual powers the Hermetic initiate might acquire, including the ability to levitate, to go without food, and to divine the future. After hearing Browne speak that evening, Miguel Alfonseca was a changed man. Within 2 years, the young poet would abandon his political activism and become Browne's disciple. In 1970, Alfonseca was appointed president of the Dominican branch of the Hermetic Society for World Service. Robert T. Browne constantly exhorted his students to tread what he called the path of return, to move away from the thrall of the material toward union with God. To ensure their success on the path, members of the Hermetic Society were required to follow a strict code of conduct. Rule number 5, perfect obedience to the master, was taken particularly seriously. Members who violated this code would be expelled from the group. If one leaves, Browne warned, especially if he or she should be sent away by the teacher, such a one will cease to be a friend, a brother, or a sister, and at once becomes a stranger, as one who is cut off. As the years passed, Robert T. Browne came to see himself as superior not only to his mortal followers, but to the Tibetan masters and advanced beings worshipped by the group. When Edgar Mason Needler voiced his disagreement, he was expelled from the society, creating a schism that remains to this day. From 1995 until his death in 2001, Needler maintained a stony silence about the 30 years he had spent as Robert T. Browne's most trusted lieutenant. Egotism, he would later write, is the worst enemy on the path. Robert T. Browne is not mentioned in the 1998 memoir Needler would write about his wartime experiences. In similar fashion, Edgar Needler's name has been omitted from the official history of the Hermetic Society listed on their website. Robert Tecumseh Browne left his earthly body in October 1978. Since that time, the Hermetic Society for World Service has continued to honor their beloved teacher as an ascended master. In the Dominican Republic, services honoring Robert T. Browne are held weekly inside a glistening white marble pyramid designed to Browne's exact specifications. The atmosphere inside the pyramid is profoundly peaceful. The walls are decorated with paintings of the Divine Mother, and the floor is embossed with the magic emblems and symbols of their society. Outside the pyramid, a reflecting pool in the shape of a six-pointed star sparkles in the tropical sunlight. During the course of his 96 years on Earth, Robert Tecumseh Browne overcame poverty, prejudice, war, and imprisonment. He edited a major newspaper, authored more than 20 books, and inspired a cadre of devoted followers. Whether you consider him a saint, a sinner, or simply a flawed human being, there is no denying the impact that Browne's outsized personality has had on the people who knew him. This is Carolyn Wilkins. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation on the mystery of Robert T. Browne. Thank you.